fought for the choice of the nation. Our chieftain so brave and so true. We'll go for the great Reformation, for Lincoln and liberty too.
The story you're about to hear is one of sacrifice and duty, of bravery and toil, and of ultimate victory. This is the story of Greenwich citizens who contributed to preserving the Union and ensuring the American dream of freedom for all in the American Civil War. In their comprehensive work, The Military and Civil History of Connecticut during the War of 1861 to 1865, W.A. Crowfoot and John M. Morris penned the following words. The first great martyrs of the war, Ellsworth, Winthrop, Ward, and Lyon, were of Connecticut stock. A Connecticut general with Connecticut regiments opened the Battle of Bull Run and closed it. A Connecticut regiment was marshaled in front of the farmhouse at Appomattox when Lee surrendered to a soldier of Connecticut blood. A Connecticut flag first displaced the palmetto upon the soil of South Carolina. A Connecticut flag was first planted in Mississippi. A Connecticut flag was first unfurled before New Orleans. At Antietam, Gettysburg, and in all the fierce campaigns of Virginia, our soldiers won crimson glories. On the banks of every river in the South, and in the battle smoke of every contested ridge and mountain peak, the sons of Connecticut have stood and patiently struggled. And in every blooming grave lie buried beneath the sacred dust of our heroes the broken shackles of bondage and the rusting weapons of rebellion. Many of these sons of Connecticut were also the sons of Greenwich. Greenwich men fought in almost every major Civil War campaign, from Bull Run to Antietam, from the Siege of Charleston to the Battle of Cold Harbor, and from the historic Union victory at Gettysburg to the trench warfare at Petersburg, until the bloody Battle of the States had come to an end and the Union was preserved. On the eve of the Civil War, Greenwich was a small agricultural community with a population just over 6,500. Greenwich was the 12th largest town in the state of Connecticut, and most families made their living by farming. Connecticut public sentiments were staunchly pro-Union, and when the South Carolina militia captured Fort Sumter, there was an outpouring of patriotic feelings in the entire state. Greenwich men were quick to answer the call of Abraham Lincoln for 75,000 volunteers to defend the Union. Greenwich soldiers served in 26 Connecticut regiments and were well represented in one of Connecticut's most accomplished regiments, the 10th Connecticut Volunteers. The 10th was an infantry unit. It was mustered into the Union Army in September of 1861. The unit saw action in the coastal campaign during the early years of the war, which culminated with the Siege of Charleston. The 10th went on to fight the trench battles of Richmond, earning praise from Union generals and Ulysses S. Grant. It was active at the war's very end, when they blocked Robert E. Lee's attempt to escape from Virginia. They were present at Appomattox Courthouse when Lee surrendered to Grant. All told, the 10th fought in 23 battles and at least as many bloody skirmishes. Company I of the 10th Connecticut Volunteers consisted entirely of Greenwich men. The company's first commander was Major Daniel Merritt Meade. Major Meade led the first contingent of Greenwich Volunteers into the Union ranks, about 55 men, averaging a very young 21 years in age. In the ranks of Company I were 12 pairs of brothers, 3 pairs of brothers-in-law, as well as 3 pairs of father and son serving together. Among the first Greenwich Volunteers were John Matthews, who served with Company I for 3 years. He fought alongside Albert Peck and Silas Meade, both of whom remained in the ranks of Company I until the war's end. Inevitably, many Greenwich men did not survive the war. Major Daniel Merritt Meade was one of them. He died of illness just 1 year after enlisting. Another casualty was 22-year-old Sergeant Caleb Holmes, a Company I commander, who died on the Richmond front. After the Union loss at the First Battle of Bull Run, volunteers poured into the Union Army ranks. In September of 1861, members of the 10th started arriving at Camp Buckingham in Hartford. A few months later, the 10th was ordered to join General Burnside's North Carolina expedition to blockade vital Confederate ports. One of the first objectives for Burnside's expeditionary force was to capture Roanoke Island in North Carolina. After a harrowing sea voyage through a violent storm, during which hundreds of Connecticut soldiers perished due to illness, the 10th was put ashore on the North Carolina coast. The 2-day battle for Roanoke Island started with Union gunboats bombarding the Confederate positions. The 10th faced a daunting task, trying to dislodge the enemy. Captain Pardee of the 10th wrote, "When we debouched from the road into the cleared way, it brought us right in front of the rebel guns, and in perfect range. They had 3 pieces of artillery fronting and commanding this clearing, and large numbers of riflemen perched in trees behind the turf walls and under all possible covers." The 10th, along with the other Connecticut units, made a determined advance and completely routed the Confederates. After the victory, the unit was recognized for their bravery and excellent soldierly actions by Commanding General John G. Foster. They also won praise from their comrades in the 8th Connecticut Volunteers, being written about as the gallant Connecticut 10th. The 10th sustained the heaviest losses in the Battle of Roanoke Island in North Carolina by any regiment engaged, with 56 soldiers killed or wounded. After taking Roanoke Island, the next Union objective was to move up the Neuse River and attack a Confederate position at New Bern, North Carolina, a strategic coastal town west of the Outer Banks. On the morning of March 13th, General Burnside ordered the entire brigade to advance on the Confederate position. The Confederates had established a long line of impressive defensive fortifications manned by 7,000 soldiers and a large number of heavy artillery. Here, a heavy and sustained rifle fire from the 10th Connecticut weakened parts of the Confederate line. This allowed the 8th Connecticut and the 4th Rhode Island troops to charge and begin the rout of the enemy forces. New Bern was soon under Union control. In his report, General Foster praised the men of the 10th, writing, "The 10th advanced in the line of battle, fired with the most remarkable steadiness, giving and taking the most severe fire." During 1862, despite the Union Army's advances along the Carolina coast, the Confederacy had largely succeeded in defending its territory, beating back the stronger Union forces with superior battlefield leadership. At the beginning of 1863, the Union Army was still in search of a major, morale-boosting victory. The 10th finally moved out of New Bern, North Carolina, in January of 1863. The regiment was ordered to St. Helena Island, South Carolina, near Charleston. The Union blockade of Charleston Harbor was effective, but the city remained in Confederate hands. In early July, the 10th was ordered to join a large-scale assault on Fort Wagner, situated on nearby Morris Island. This was part of a second Union attempt to capture Charleston. The 10th's main role in the assault was a successful diversionary action. The main attack force consisted of the African American troops of the 54th Massachusetts and the 6th Connecticut, as depicted in the motion picture Glory. The attack on Fort Wagner did not initially succeed, although Union forces did breach the fort's defenses. After the attack, Union soldiers spent months digging trenches parallel to the Confederate lines. This tactic eventually proved a successful strategy, as the Confederate troops abandoned Fort Wagner in early September. During the 2-year coastal campaign, Greenwich soldiers fought well, contributing to the success of the 10th Regiment. At the Battle of Roanoke Island, a Greenwich soldier was first on reconnaissance, and during the Siege of Charleston, Greenwich soldiers captured a Confederate cannon and used it to clear a path for their comrades. Greenwich soldiers would again show their courage and sense of purpose during the deadly trench battles of Petersburg and Richmond.